Yeah, when some of my friends try to cut themselves before.
My friend cut herself.
I've heard stories, not personally.
A girl in my school, yeah, I won't give out her name. She cut her wrists a few times, cut up her legs, nasty stuff like that.
Some girl I knew, she tried to, she was going through a lot of trouble, so she would like cut herself, cause her own self-harm.
Yeah, I used to. I have scars on my hands from it and my legs.
How common is it among your friends and your peers? Probably about 1 out of every 5 people. Like, it's really common.
About 50%.
Nobody I really know has like problems enough so they would want to harm themselves, but I've seen other people. I know other people who know people like that.
It's pretty common. I've known a lot of people who do it.
Not too common, only a few.
Not very at all.
Not that common.
Yeah.
It's like 1 out of 200.
And I don't really hear about that too often.
About 1 out of every 3 kids I know do it, so like my crowd, and it's really not cool. I don't do it anymore.
Not too common, but it's out there, so something to be aware of.
It's said the most basic natural instinct is self-preservation.
When threatened, a human being will do whatever is necessary to keep himself alive.
It's a very small percentage of the population that would willingly cause injury or death to themselves.
But there are some people who have been traumatized, hurt, or tortured so badly that this most basic instinct becomes terribly warped.
Self-harm is the only way the person can find to preserve himself, choosing a life with self-inflicted physical pain over a kind of emotional deadness.
As a matter of fact, for some, the only way they may know that they can still feel anything is to cause harm to themselves. Hi everyone, I'm Beth.
And I'm Jack. Today on Real Faith TV, we'll talk about why some teens intentionally cut and burn themselves, and how we can reach out to convince them to get help.
At the start of our show, we met some teens who told whether self-harm, like cutting and burning, was common among their friends.
While a few said they didn't know anyone, others said they thought it was pretty common.
One of the teens said she actually used to cut herself.
Meagan is our spotlight guest today. She started cutting herself while in grammar school.
She will tell us how she got caught up in this and what she does now when she gets the urge to go back to this self-destructive behavior.
We'll meet Meagan later and also talk with our studio guests on this topic.
But first, let's go back to our teens on the street and find out why they think some teens hurt themselves in this way.
You know, they're upset, a lot of problems to deal with. They don't know how to handle their problems. So, I think the best way they can do is by, hurting themselves.
Just depression, I guess. Parents, maybe, school problems, something like that.
They're depressed. Depression.
They think there's no way out. It's just they get too stressed out with things.
Maybe they're like mad or something.
I have no clue why. Being a teenager is a great thing. I don't know why you would want to cut yourself or whatever like that.
She believed that she was the problem of all her problems, She was the cause of all her problems.
Teenagers go through a rough time in high school. They're really emotional.
I think because they're desperate. I think that a lot of teens lose faith, and they lose faith in themselves, and they just really I think they get a lot of stress, and they get a lot of just things that they don't think that they can deal with, and I think they don't have enough confidence in themselves, and then they lose it.
I don't know. I think they get confused sometimes, and they think that it would just be better to hurt themselves when they really don't realize that what it does in the long run.
They think it's in a way to escape the pain.
To escape from their problem?
Because it's the only way to release pain.
It's easier to deal with a physical pain than an emotional pain.
I think it's really a combination of all those different things. What the last girl said, dealing with the physical pain instead of the emotional pain. Another girl said there's no way out. Someone else said all the problems in their lives, they feel like it's all their own fault. I really think it's a combination of all these things pushing together that maybe causes some teenagers to start cutting. But let's see how much experience our studio guests have with this topic.
Let's meet them. They are Anthony, Katie, Meagan, Powell, Cora, and Catherine.
Do you guys know anyone who engages in self-harming behavior?
I've known a lot of people. A majority of the crowd I hang out with has either cut or burned in the past or has some other self-abusive behaviors. And I guess most of them start because they had pain coming to them from other places, and when that pain stopped, they were like, well, where's the pain? I need the pain. And then they kept giving themselves the pain instead, and that's what I experienced a lot of my friends having.
I hang out with the crowd kind of like that too. You know, like a lot of them are good, nice people. It's just the society around them, you know, like the school environment has cut down their self-esteem so much that, you know, they're wonderful people. They just don't know that they are, you know, and it's just bad.
I think that another thing is that sometimes you just need a release from reality, whether it be like me and my brother, we make music, and you know, that's our little release from reality. But some kids who just don't have a release, they have no other choice but, you know, to inflict harm on themselves.
Or they feel they have no other choice.
They feel like they do.
But I mean, I'm surprised between the man on the streets and what you guys have had to say. I mean, I know about cutting and self-harm and burning, and I know it's out there. There's one girl I see in my school all the time with cuts on her arms and her legs, but I mean, none of my friends do it, and I've never known anyone personally. So I mean, I guess it's a lot more common than at least I ever realized.
Well, it's the same with me. I know of people who have
Right.
cut themselves, but I don't really know anybody personally.
Because probably in a lot of instances, it's not openly talked about. You know, it's kind of pushed aside.
I'm just beginning to wonder, you know, if maybe there are more people I know that do this, and I'm just not aware of it.
Yeah, there are a lot. I know of a lot of people who do it because, you know, like I had this one friend, and society, just like the school system, had just kicked him around and stuff, all the kids, and like he had no self-esteem, and he'd gotten to the point where he was just completely apathetic, both emotionally and physically. And, you know, like he would just tell people, oh, I can't feel anything, and, you know, like he'd burn himself or cut himself in front of people just to prove that he couldn't feel anything. And it just hurt so much, like it hurt me to see him hurt himself because he was a good friend. So, you know, I just said, you can't do that anymore. It's not cool, and it's just bad.
Yeah, it must have been a really difficult situation for you to deal with, for him to deal with, for anyone really. Next, Meagan tells us how and why she started cutting herself.
When I was in 7th grade, I began cutting myself because I was having a lot of family problems and problems in school, like with my grades, and people were making fun of me, and one of my good friends had killed himself, and it was just, I was going through a lot of things, so the only thing I could think of to do to kind of stop that pain was to hurt myself. So I began cutting myself, and at first it was just kind of every once in a while, like once a month or something like that, and then as I got more into it, I kept doing it more often until like by the time I was like 13 or 14, I was doing it every day and I couldn't stop. It was an accident when I began to hurt myself because it started out as something like just punching a locker, and the pain in my hand would just take my mind off of the pain that I was feeling inside, and eventually it just escalated into cutting myself. Well, like I've burned myself before, and just hitting things and just any kind of pain would just make me feel better. You don't think about the mental pain you're feeling, you're thinking about what you're doing to yourself in that pain, and just the adrenaline you get from watching yourself bleed kind of just makes you stop thinking about the real things that are going on in your life and what you're doing to yourself. I realized I need help when things were getting really bad and I couldn't stop cutting myself and I was getting suicidal. I had my sleeve rolled up and I didn't realize it, and my mother saw the cuts and then she told me that I needed help. I didn't want it at first, but then the school found out what I was doing to myself and they told me that they wouldn't let me back in school unless I got help, and once I did, it was a lot better. I haven't severely cut myself in about 6 months, but there have been times where I've made mistakes and couldn't help it. I learned that there are better ways that you can deal with your problems besides hurting yourself, and I learned that you need someone there for you and you can't do it alone.
It was really surprising to hear that how she started cutting herself was an accident. You know, she punched a locker and her hand hurt, and that focused her attention on that pain. And how it escalated to be cutting all the time by the time she was 13. That's just so upsetting to me. It breaks my heart, it really does.
Self-harming behaviors can be an attempt to destroy the emotional pain a person is experiencing by attacking the body itself.
Often, self-harming people may feel that they are not good enough to be treated well, and they hurt themselves as a kind of punishment for not meeting the standard they feel others expect of them.
Self-harm can often be an attempt to feel.
People who get to the point of hurting themselves have usually been hurt so much that they shut off their feelings and become emotionally numb.
Physical pain is welcome because it lets them know that they are still capable of feeling something.
So what do you guys think about all of this?
I remember I had this one friend who, the point when she realized she needed to stop was she was listening to some music and just kind of crying. And it was a Goo Goo Dolls song and had this line, "You bleed just to know you're alive." And she's like, has my life become this? Is this really what I'm doing to make sure that I can still feel? And at that point, she just realized, okay, I just got to put this down, got to stop. And after that, with help from her friends and other sources, she was able to come into a healthier lifestyle.
I'm just having a hard time trying to understand, why people would do this. Because I know for myself, whenever I get into trouble, whenever my life's a mess, I always have God to turn to. But I guess if you don't have anything,
Or you don't realize that you have something to turn to.
Yeah, I mean, some people, like even if they're religious, and they realize that God loves them, they don't think they're worthy of God's love. That hurts even more because, nobody's worthy of God's love, even like Mother Teresa and like all that kind of stuff. But they think that they've done stuff that's like so heinous, or people don't like them so much that they're not even like equal to other human beings, that they're not worthy in that sense, but they are, and that God loves you no matter what.
The only thing is that there can't be any problem big enough that someone can't handle, that they need to turn mental pain into physical pain. That's the only problem that I see.
Well, if you're going through a really rough situation or one hard, traumatic situation after another, in addition to the daily struggles of teenage life with the stresses of school and fitting in and peer pressure and self-esteem, I mean, I guess I could, that's how they feel. That's where they're coming from in that respect.
There are avenues where you can go and help yourself. It's just if you're in that kind of pain, you're so blinded by the pain that you can't see those avenues, even though they're there and people are reaching their hands out to you. You kind of walk past, more focused on your own pain than on helping yourself.
And I think that, that's where it's hard for us. I mean, we have to find a way to reach out to these people and show them we care. So what can you do if you have a friend who's harming themselves in some way?
In our next segment, Meagan talks about how difficult it was for her to stop.
And gives us some advice on how to help a friend who might be hurting him or herself.
The most difficult part of this whole experience was trying to stop. It takes time because after a while you become addicted. And I stopped little by little. Like I was doing it every day, and then it was kind of once a week and then once a month and then barely ever until the point where I could just stop it altogether. When I feel like I need to cut myself, I just call one of my friends up so they can support me and give me encouragement and strength. And I don't give myself the opportunity to hurt myself. I take myself out of those circumstances and don't put myself around sharp objects. My family and friends are always worrying about me now, and like they don't understand why I do it, and they think that I'm always gonna keep doing it, so they're kind of scared. Advice I have for parents and teachers on children cutting themselves is you have to approach them in a very calm manner. Don't get angry at someone for hurting themselves, because when they're doing it, they need help, and you need to realize that. And you need to realize that they're not doing it as a form of manipulation or a form of getting back at you. They're doing it because they're upset. Advice I have for people whose friends are hurting themselves is you need to tell someone whether your friends want you to or not, because in just keeping it to yourself, you're only hurting your friend. If you're cutting yourself, I understand how hard it can be to stop, and I understand that you must be going through a lot, but you need to realize that there's other ways to deal with your pain, and you can do so many other things, and God's always there for you. But what you need to do is you need to find someone you can talk to, and you need to pray about it, and you need to want to stop before you do.
I think one of the most important things to remember that Meagan said is that if you have a friend who's cutting themselves, you need to get them help whether they want you to or not. She's so right with that, because if you keep it to yourself and you don't tell anyone, you're only allowing them to hurt themselves more.
It's true, because sometimes we think, we feel guilty that, that we're like telling, like really secret stuff, but like she
nobody
said,
wants to be a rat.
Yeah.
But it's not being a rat. It's actually helping your friend. It's being that hand out of the pit of despair that they've found themselves in.
So have any of you guys been in a situation where you tried to stop someone from hurting himself or tried to get them some help?
Yeah, me and a couple of my friends were at dinner one night when a close friend of ours told us that she'd been hurting herself, and I instinctively thought, okay, we need to be calm about this. We need to help her. My other friend who was with us instinctively thought, I'm going to spaz out now and start crying and screaming and go to the bathroom. So I kind of felt like I was on damage control there, but after calming her down, we went back and we talked to the friend who was hurting herself, and I think that was one of the steps that started to help in her recovery, and I was glad that we could be there for her without, trying to put her on the spot or anything else, even though it came kind of close to that.
I've never, like I said earlier, I don't know personally anyone who does self-harm, but I did have two friends who came to me saying that they wanted to commit suicide, and that's why I feel so strongly about what Meagan said about get them help whether they want it or not. And even like Catherine said, you don't want to be the rat, but I mean, later after the fact, one of my friends came to me and they thanked me. So, you just have to do it for them, because it is, in a sense, a cry for help. But the cuts are there. You see them, and that's a sign that they want help. At least that's how I view it. I mean, I guess I can't really say what's going through their head, but that's how we as their friend should view it, to go out and get them help.
If you're trying to help one of your friends stop hurting themselves, you need to, there's a lot of fear in, oh, well, they're gonna hate me if I try to say something about it. Even while they're doing it, they're not thinking about what you think of them. They're only thinking of how bad they feel. And when they do eventually get out of that, if they can do that with your help, then they'll stop being so selfish and they can start to really appreciate what you did for them. And they probably don't even hate you at the time they do it. And they can only be grateful for it in the long run. So I'd say just go for it. If you have something to say to your friends that needs to be said, just say it.
And if you're really their friend, you don't want to see them hurting themselves and everything, so you want to get them help.
It's like those commercials, for drugs and alcohol on TV where the kid's like in the middle of the road and the truck is coming. If you know your friend's in trouble, you got to help them out, It's the same thing like picking the guy up off the street in front of the truck, or going and, telling somebody in, counseling position that your friend needs help.
Self-harm is a cry for help. People notice when others do things to hurt themselves.
Physical marks on a person are disturbing and will more than likely bring about comment.
The person who is hurting themselves knows that they are in danger and really does want to be saved.
If they didn't, they wouldn't make outward signs of harm.
And if a person feels like their life is meaningless and has no value, they may come to consider suicide as a real option.
Harming oneself can be a way to avoid taking things too far, almost like a pressure valve to release some of the pain, so they don't actually go so far as to kill themselves.
It breaks my heart to think that someone could hate themselves so much.
I know, it makes you wonder if they really knew how much God loved them. Could they still feel that way about themselves?
Meagan has found a lot of strength in her relationship with God, especially through prayer.
It's one of the tools she used to fight the daily struggle of not hurting herself.
Let's go back to our interview with Meagan one more time and listen to her tell how faith helped her and how it's still helping her to fight her desire to cut herself.
My faith helped me a lot while I was trying to recover from this. It just gave me comfort and something to lean back on. I found a reason to stop hurting myself after I had gone on a retreat at my school because during the retreat they had explained to me how much Jesus loved me and that he gave his life to me and that there was no greater love than that. And after that, I just realized that in hurting myself, I was hurting other people and God too. Prayer mostly helped me overcome the problems I had, because just being able to talk to God and know that he was there for me just helped a lot and reassured me. A lot of times I still think of cutting myself because it's just such an instant relief for my pain. But I always remember that I can't because it's hurting so many people, including myself. And when I feel like I need to cut myself, I just pray to God to give me the strength to hold back.
If we know God's unconditional love for us and that God's Spirit lives within each of us, it sheds new light on who we are.
You are not just someone suffering alone. You are a temple of God.
God knows how badly you are hurting, and he will never abandon you.
God feels all of our pain with us. He constantly offers strength in our despair and help to heal what tortures us.
He wants us to know the joy of having a relationship with God and living our lives free from emotional pain.
So what are some suggestions you guys have for someone who might be harming themselves, or how to find their way back to God and build a relationship with him?
Well, like Kate said before, it's a very introversive thing, cutting yourself. So to get out of it, you should look out of yourself and look at other people. You know, look at your family, look at your friends, look at people who love you, and really recognize in them the love and appreciation they have for you, because it's there. And 1 billion times that is just a fraction of the love and appreciation that God feels for you.
And you know, I think that religion is just so important when you're going through something like this, because you have somewhere to turn to. I mean, of the 5 people I've known who have been involved in self-destructive behavior like this, 4 of them were atheists. And the one that wasn't is the only one of them who's been able to pull herself out of it. The rest are still involved in this behavior because they have no real reason to pull out of it. They don't have anywhere to turn. They don't, or they think that they don't.
You can't do it without God.
Exactly.
Like, I'm understanding that people who cut themselves don't feel loved by anyone. The most important thing you have to remember is that people really do love you. And if you feel that no one does, you can always turn to God. He's always there, and he'll get you through anything. Just put your trust in him.
Like when I lost my father on 9/11, me and my brother, we realized how much we were loved by our family and each other and God. We had each other and the rosary, and that's all we needed.
I think, though, the real question is, how do you make someone realize that God is there in their life? You could tell it to them till you're blue in the face, but something has to happen inside their heart. And I think that one of the biggest and strongest ways for that to happen is through prayer. You can. I know people who have started praying not really feeling like there was anything out there, just saying, well, let me give this a shot. And that's when they began to really build a relationship with God.
Oh God, if there is a God, save my soul if I have a soul. Yeah. Start off with that.
And then I think another thing that's important to realize is, we've been saying it's okay to reach out for help. You should reach out for help. You can't do it alone. And I think that, the same thing applies for your religion and your relationship with God. There is nothing wrong with going to a priest you like, a nun you like, your youth minister, a friend who is very religious, and saying, I really want to find God in my life. Help me do that. There's nothing wrong with that. It's a good thing to do, I think.
Yeah.
People are afraid of what people will think of them if they go that openly. At least I think a lot of people feel that way because, they don't want to get posted as one thing or another. I know I've been called things in class because I'm religious that I would rather not repeat on television. But, the facts are you don't need the respect of people who are going to think of you that way, and you're going to be happier for it. And the people that you go to are people that have already gone through similar things and who are just going to be happy that you're trying to reach out and find happiness.
Yeah, it's important to remember that self-harm is always serious.
If you know of someone engaging in harmful behavior, try to get them to talk to someone who can help them.
Friendship is important in healing someone in that position.
But even more important is someone who is qualified to give them the tools to recover their sense of self.
An adult counselor can point them in the right direction.
If you would like more information on this topic,
contact us through our website.
We'll post links to sites with more information.
The address is www.realfaithtv.com.
or you can call us at 609-406-7402.
And one final thought. We are able to love because we are first loved by God.
If you have friends who are hurting themselves, tell them how important they are to you.
And share your faith with them.
Let them know what you believe about God being with them in their suffering and God's love for them.
Let them see God's care through your own self-care and your care for them.
Thanks for watching.
We'll see you next time on Real Faith TV.
God bless.